All right, welcome everyone. How you doing, Nerdy Bird? Another full moon at midnight, and tonight I am going to start by reading something by one of our community members. So, Asa Winchester has been working on a series of pieces, which each piece is like a letter. So he's doing a series that is essentially the correspondence of. He's combining actual historical figures. So it's 17th century noblemen reincarnated as slugs talking to each other. And when he read me his most recent letters, I thought that would be perfect to read at the next full moon. And so I asked him if he minded if I read it at the next full moon. And he didn't. And we're at the next full moon. So I'm going to share the two most recent pieces from his collection. So the first letter, correspondence. Oh, wait. So yeah, most of the letters are like slugs writing to each other. But what you need to know about the plot from the letters up to this point, I guess, is Richard Graham, 1st Viscount Preston. That slug has found himself trapped inside a cement enclosure in an old lady's backyard. So he's trapped in this cement enclosure and writes to the moon. So correspondence with the luminous glow of the moon. Richard Graham, 1st Viscount Preston, to the luminous glow of the moon. Dearest moon, as I await for the inevitable decline of the sun to pass into the fiery hills of unreason, as I await for night to displace the serenity of certainty, as I await for the stars to slowly rise, to pulsate their light of unresolve and disillusionment into the deep chasm, as I await for this horrific display to commence, my sensory tentacles, like two dowsing rods, which nervously wavers, bends towards the northern sky, fixed on a trail of light golden haze that leads gracefully upwards and onwards. And it's this I follow, without conviction, without hope, until it leads me to your luminous glow. Everything that I ever feared, everything that I ever desired was within you. Every inconsequential feeling which stirred within, that went unnoticed, was seen by you. And it was your luminous glow which reflected back your understanding. And it's here I await for you. And when the time comes for your face to be revealed, that's when I know I'll be let out from my cement enclosure. And the letter that Richard Graham, 1st Viscount Preston, received from the moon in return is: The Mask of the Moon to Richard Graham, 1st Viscount Preston. Dearest Richard, far above the swaying roses of intention, where silhouettes cast a looming shadow of their sustained distress and confusion, whether the flowers bend towards the prosperity of their invested interests or run contrary to them, whether if my light reaches down to their roots will make no difference to me. They will still remain hidden on their own accord, lying in the same private bed of their current confusion, of their current distress, silently teetering, silently gesticulating their red bulbous heads, silently burying their roots deep within their own private soil, where they can fully stretch and struggle with great immensity, reaching down into the swell of darkness, this current swell of their current struggle. I will only reflect. I will only receive. I can only show you what you're willing to reveal to me. So I would caution against mistaking me to be some sort of guiding star of fortune. I am no fortune teller. I only reflect. I will only receive. So when two lovers embrace with their youthful exuberance and with the fullness of their vitality, when they gaze up towards the vastness that the night has to offer, and when they peer into the caverns of my eyes, their willingness to see the magic and wonder I instill into them is only because I reflect back the luminous glow of their love, their current wonder. So I become the lover's moon. And likewise, all the tall tales you've ever heard as a child of the exemplary acts of madness committed under my watchful guise, it's only because I reflect back to the madman the luminous glow of his madness, his current slip into unreason. So whether you're a lover of madness or madly in love, I will only reflect. I will only receive. Remember, I wax and wane. So if you only had the pleasure of experiencing the latter, chances are the scales will be tipped so you may experience the former, and vice versa. Then you can truly say with certainty that you know the madness of love. I've lived many moons, and I've worn many masks. What mask shall I wear for you tonight, Richard? Welcome, everyone. And in the description, if you liked that and you want to see or read more of Asa's art, there's 2 links in the description here for his Instagram. So anyone who's interested in more of his work, that's where you can find it. Hey, Rob, Runaway Rascal. Hi, Tribes of the Moon. All right. Anyone have anything to talk about? I have nothing else planned. I had that, and that was it. Okay, well, Wombat Rob says beautiful stuff. Yes, I agree. And actually, the whole series is fucking amazing. Asa researched all this historical shit that he's fully aware the reader's not going to know, and he incorporated it with a lot of very interesting details about the biology of slugs. So the whole series is fucking fascinating. It's the craziest, weirdest thing, but it's really fucking powerful. Welcome, Dust. I'm encouraging him when he has enough to to put them out there as a collection. And he reads his work much better than I do. So I hope that one day he starts doing his own recordings of all the letters and posting them on YouTube. As far as I'm aware, he doesn't have himself reading anything anywhere. But you can see his visual art and read some of his work at the 2 Instagrams. Okay, Tribes of the Moon, which is Ani, is sending love and light to everyone. Hey, you're welcome, Nerdy Bird. And Asa, if you're watching this now or later, thanks for letting me read that. So how's everyone doing tonight? Because as great as those 2 letters were, they did not eat up much time. And I'm still in that fucking mood. Hey, Nolan. Good to have you here. How you doing? I have still been in a fucking mood of very much in the present moment, time with wildlife, or obsessed with Ani. I did watch one podcast the other day. I saw Daniel Schmachtenberger talking to someone. I forget who. I played it like it was playing through the window while I was outside. But my head is still not full of intellectual shit that I have to ramble on about. So Rob says he's doing just fine, almost good, on a musical bender of sorts, waiting for some philosophy books to arrive in the mail. Well, that is much better than feeling shitty. I'm glad that you're almost good. Let's all send Rob a bit of energy and see if we can tip him right over into good. And Ani's feeling energized by the full moon or possibly me. Dust says, I'm chill. My head is stuck between chasing woman and God. Well, with Ani, who is Tribes of the Moon Tarot in chat, I'm chasing both in the same place. I see all the divine feminine in her. And Rob's advice, Dust, is to chase a female deity. Truly won't let you down. Yeah, and a lot of what my head is full of is my particular physical manifestation of the divine feminine is going to be here in 10 days. So I've been pretty obsessed with that. But Ani's got her plane ticket and she'll be here on the 31st. So between being obsessed with that and spending the majority of the rest of my time outside with chipmunks and squirrels, I don't really have a lot of my mind to talk about. And I know nothing's gone up on the channel recently, but I have been getting back to work. I've been doing private sessions. And I've been doing some work behind the scenes in preparation for some content. So none of it's turned into content yet, but I have been meeting with some volunteers, such as Dust. Some stuff is in the works, so there should be more content coming out soon. Although I don't fucking know when. All right, Nerdy Bird says I'm all right. Improving after 2 weeks sickness spell. Trying to remember how to be myself. Well, I'm glad you're improving. Rob says, happy your lady is visiting. Yes, I am very, very fucking excited that my woman's visiting for the first time. And Nerdy Bird Dust wants to know how bad your illness was. All right, anyone have questions or comments to... Okay, here we go. So Dust is half tempted to get a tarot reading. Well, Ani will do tarot readings for anyone that wants one. And she takes donations for the tarot reading, but you can make your donation after. So if you want to try a tarot reading and you're skeptical about tarot and you don't want to go to a tarot reader that charges you anything up front, Ani will do tarot readings. And if you don't get anything out of it and don't find it useful, you don't have to give her anything. You can donate whatever you want afterwards. Here, I'll put... If you want to read from Ani, I'm going to put her Instagram link in chat. And you can message her there. We're going to eventually get her set up on Metagora. Here, does that work? Did I do that right? Someone tell me if that works. So Tyler's got his fucking Metagora thing up. And what he's shown me so far, which a lot of it goes over my fucking head because I'm basically a Luddite. I'm not good with all this fucking technology. But Tyler's website, Metagora, looks fucking awesome. He already set up Sorting Myself Out as one of the communities there. He's going to show me and the team how to run that page and shit. And it looks like, rather than Discord being the primary way that we're going to interact in the future. Like, I'm not saying we'll shut down the Discord, but if I can figure out how to use Metagora, I expect that's where the primary interaction for Sorting Myself Out is going to occur. And once we got it figured out, that'll for Ani as well. She'll stop doing it probably through her Instagram, and she'll probably host her tarot tribe on Metagora as well. But I encourage any fucking like computer nerds who are interested in that kind of shit to check Metagora out. I don't think there's much there yet. He just got it up. But, you know, if you want to be an early adopter and be one of the fucking cool kids who can say I was using Metagora before anyone else was, go start using Metagora now. All right, Dust says that works. Dust says he has no problem charging up front. Well, for anyone who does. You can think of it as a free reading, and if you find it useful, you can donate. So there's no fucking risk or pressure. And Ani's awesome. She's very intuitive, very kind, loving. She does it for the sake of being helpful. I haven't heard any complaints yet. So, Dust, were you, like, when you say you're half tempted, were you in any way reluctant or have any, like, concerns about tarot from the Christian angle? Because I know, like, a lot of Christians are uncomfortable with tarot. Do you have any of that, Dust? Or, also, feel free not to answer. It's nobody's fucking business. I'm just trying to fill time. Nerdy Bird says tarot's always cool. Haven't had one in 20 years. Well, you're due, man. And I guess if anyone here doesn't have Instagram, just write to me on Discord and I'll set it up. And since I haven't figured out how to use Metagora yet, if anyone's not a part of our Discord, there's a link in the description for our Discord. And if you want to write to me, or if you want to get a reading with Ani and you don't want to have to make an Instagram account to get a hold of her, you can just write to me. All right, Rob says, the complexity and duality of magic. What is in store for us there? It seems so rich and vast, truly leaving stones unturned. What do I have to say about magic? Like, I know I have fucking tons of nonsense to ramble about magic, but it's like nothing's coming up. The mood I'm in now does not work well for live streaming. I've been in this mood for a while. I was concerned at first that like it wouldn't work well for like a private session. But I'm surprised that's been no problem. If I'm talking to someone, it's like I enter in this I have nothing to say mode. But if I've got someone that I'm like talking to and connecting with, it can get me rambling at length. So I found I have had plenty to say in private sessions. Yeah, like I wouldn't even know where to start with talking about magic. Okay, so one difference with a private session is if I can connect to a person and I have some idea of their reality tunnel, so what reality they live in, then I know what to say. Like I know a bunch of you and you're all in different reality tunnels. So like what I would say to you, Rob, about magic would be different than what I would say to Dust. Like I would frame it in a different way. Same thing with Nerdy Bird or Hey Dan, Nolan, same thing. Like, and especially magic is such a vast thing that it's I need to know what not need to. It's easier to have a reality, like to know a reality that someone else is in, and to try to communicate the differences between my experience and theirs to them. And I mean, sometimes that doesn't stop me from rambling at length on live streams. In a different mood, that question probably could have got a lot out of me. But I'm going to blame this mood on Ani. I'm just all fucking stupid and lovesick. Is why I can't think straight. Love makes you act like an idiot. Okay, and so Dust says, yeah, a little. Though I'm open to stuff. I've been learning to trust God in spite of the way I see things. Grizz posted a vid about learned helplessness, which I found really helpful. Okay, I did not see Grizz's learned helplessness release. I will check that out. Okay, so you did hear some of that message about tarot being evil, but you're open-minded. Rob says Jesus was the first New Ager. When it comes, like I can see part of the Christian perspective, something like tarot or Ouija boards or like magic tools that are presented simply as a tool without any safety training around it. Like even though Christianity is full of rituals and fucking magic and all that shit, it's got the moral framework built around it. Whereas tarot isn't tightly associated with a moral tradition. So you will find tarot readers who have really high moral standards, and you will find tarot readers who are liars and manipulative people, and you don't necessarily need to be a good person to connect to shit on the other side, like to be able to access knowledge and stuff that will impress people. You can reach into the dark or into the light. Although I don't like that analogy because the actual dark is sacred as a metaphor. Well, yeah, no, fuck it. I won't say dark and light. You can reach into the good or the bad. So like that Christian perspective has a point about those things. Any fucking magical tool, divination tool, any fucking ritual or anything like that should involve an initial cleansing, a protecting your space, and placing a barrier, and like calling out only to good things. Like the most basic thing to start with for any newbie is like start anything like that by calling Saint Michael the Archangel, and leave it up to Saint Michael the Archangel, your higher self, God. Leave it up to something bigger than you to set the border of what can contact you or not. But you don't have to worry about that with Ani. I'll vouch for her. She does it the good way. So Dan says, so good to see you, brother. Currently watching from the beginning, so I'm playing Time Traveler. Well, hi, Dan. How you doing tonight? I know shit's been rough for a while. I hope you're doing better. So Rob says, it's a topic which leaves the tongue. I often think magic is meant to be experienced, not talked about. Okay, so yeah, there is like a large element of shut the fuck up when it comes to magical traditions. As far as like your private magical practice, you really should not talk to anyone about that. Or only talk to people you trust and people who have good energy, people who to follow the fucking Petersonian thing. Like Peterson says, choose friends who want the best for you or whatever. Like the same thing that he talks about in that chapter. If someone doesn't pass Peterson's standards of a good friend, if they don't actually want the best for you rather than what's good for them, if you can't share bad news with them without them just telling you something worse that happened to them, and if you can't share good news with them because they won't take it seriously or they'll bring it down, do not share anything about your magic with them. But overall, it's much better to keep your private magic fucking private, because magic involves the interaction between the physical dimension and the mental spiritual dimensions. And so within magic, whether you believe it's all a psychological phenomenon, or whether you believe there's something metaphysical about it, either way, the principle of magic is considering everything within the realm of thought and emotion to be real. It is something real. So you don't want, so for instance, if you're constructing a thought form, you don't want other people thinking about your fucking thought form. It is made of thoughts. So you don't want other people's mental energy. You don't want their jealousness, their paranoia, their whatever attaching to your magic. So it is better not to talk about your private magical practices. Okay, so Nerdy Bird says Merck's definition of magic certainly seems hermetic. Yeah, and sorry, you asked before. I meant to answer and didn't. I was jumping around a bit. My definition of magic is extremely fucking loose and weird. Especially because I had the breaking point of when I first, and first of all, like it was a long road. I was led to it. Like so much of spirituality, so much of various religions, so much of psychology is all aspects of magic. Like meditation is a major component of magic. And so I had been doing fucking mystical shit for years before I started using the word magic at all. And over my whole life before a few years ago, I considered the word magic silly. I thought of it like stage magic and shit like that. At a certain point, I took the word magic seriously. But I was so involved in such a strange mystical life to begin with that a large amount of discovering what magic really was, like magic if you finish it with a K, I realized I was already doing fucking tons of it. Like all the meditation fits into the magic frame. And so, okay, to me, magic is a frame that I can set everything else I experience into it. You know, we talk about frames or reality tunnels or whatnot. Like, I can fit my Catholic frame or reality tunnel. I can fit my inner fucking punks frame of the world. I can fit my philosophical I can fit Taoism. I can fit all these other frames and reality tunnels under a larger frame that I call magic. And so magic is fucking all of that. And it gets down to where eventually it's not just the fucking things that are like paranormal that is magic. It's like every fucking thing is magic. Every moment is magic. the mystery of everything that surrounds us, the fact that you're conscious at all. I had a thought that I have no idea how to put into words. Well, that train of thought derailed, I guess. So Rob said that's what's so magic about magic. The whole world becomes alive. Yeah, everything becomes alive. Hi, City. How are you doing tonight? Hope you're well. And it's more even than just like what's it called? I just lost the fucking word. Sam Harris's wife wrote the book about it. Panpsychism? Anyway, whatever. The idea that all aspects of reality, like all physical material, has some form of consciousness, like right down to atoms and that stuff. I find with magic, I guess there's that layer where everything's alive. The trees are, rocks are alive, the air, the elements, fire, water, earth, and air. But it's like it goes further than that to me. Like there's thought forms and there's angelic entities. It seems to me that emotions are alive, that thoughts themselves have a form of life. Like not even just in the physical world, everything is imbued with spirit. Concepts and symbols are filled with spirit. The collective unconscious is conscious, it seems to me, like is experiencing, is alive in and of itself. Concepts may have consciousness. Like when Peterson quotes whoever, and that, people don't have ideas, ideas have people. I guess fucking trippy. All right, so City says, not bad. Saw this video in my recommendation, like sub box. Okay, so are you somebody who subscribed to Sorting Myself Out way back when Andrew ran the channel and you have no idea who I am or why this channel, you're subscribed to it? Is that what's going on with you? Because I took over this channel like 2.5 years ago, but Andrew ran it for 2 years before that. And there's still tons of subscribers, I think, that YouTube has not recommended my channel's shit. And so they have no idea I've taken over. Okay, did I miss anything further up? Welcome, Rob. And yeah, Nerdy Bird, like even Taoism, to me, magic's a frame where all the other frames make sense inside of it. In a fucking way I don't know how to understand, or how to understand, don't know how to explain. In one way, part of it becomes like the difference. Who'd I hear talk about this? Manly P. Hall, maybe, or Alan Watts? I think it was Manly P. Hall. Was talking about the difference he saw between Eastern and Western, where in the West, if somebody's of a certain religion and they switch to another religion, or like if they're a Christian and they decide to become Buddhist, it's like they leave Christianity behind and become Buddhist. Where he said to people in the East, those people in the East who don't look at it that way. You could be raised Buddhist and decide to learn Taoism. And you don't throw away your Buddhism. You become both a Buddhist and a Taoist. And to someone who's both a Buddhist and a Taoist, there would be no problem with also becoming Christian if they were drawn to that. And it's none of them negate the other. They create a large enough space in themselves for each framework that they learn to step into. And find the higher perspective from which the frames don't need to be in conflict. Like there is so much of reality that is the unknown unknown. Fuck, how do I describe this? The great chaos, the unknown unknown, that which is beyond us. If you can access that, it wraps all the other frameworks in like Nerf so they don't damage each other. If you drop down into the lower framework where you think we know everything and you think there is a right answer that a human fucking monkey mind can understand, then you'll start finding that different frameworks conflict with each other. Also, people conflict with each other. You can't believe that because I believe this. These things are in conflict. There's damage done when these things encounter each other. Whereas if you can access the love of like the divine chaos and really embrace the unknown, that wraps everything in Nerf, where it doesn't hurt each other anymore. There's enough space for all of it. And it's okay for someone else to be stuck in a certain reality tunnel. Because within that great unknown is a pattern that is barely perceptible, in which all of this is working together for a purpose. And you don't need to understand it to pick up the flow and vibration of that. I feel like this is turning into utter nonsense. Oh, okay, you subbed after I talked to Pajot. Okay, there's something I can promote, by the way. 2 more V's. Good friend and, part of the community working on the channel and shit. He did hit his Pentecost for the zombie apocalypse musical thing. And just recently, like a week ago, Jonathan Pajot had 2 more V's, or some of you know him as Marvin, on his channel to discuss that. I shared it in the announcements on our Discord, but I myself have not actually watched it. When I saw it come up, I shared it, and I still intend to go back and watch that, but I haven't yet. Yes, Nerdy Bird, I agree. The world is alive. But like hammers, are hammers alive? Are tacks alive? It all becomes alive. Yes, they are in their own way. And a good way to think about that is, imagine some famous serial killer. Ed Gein had used a hammer with one of his killings, and that hammer was evidence and had moved into the like that collector's market for the macabre memorabilia. A hammer can gain an energy if a serial killer uses it. Or imagine someone found, like, dug up archaeologically, because Jesus was a carpenter. Imagine someone found the hammer that Jesus used when he was a carpenter. You'd notice the life of that hammer. Dust says everything has identity to it, a way in which we associate the structure of the importance things have to us. Yes, absolutely. And Nerdy Bird says, I'm a Spinozist, and many folk interpret his ideas as panpsychic. I myself do not. Daniel says, hey, Lunatic, can I have you on my podcast? Sure. I don't know who you are, but sure. Do I know you? Because I know a number of Daniels. I don't recognize Daniel Arg. But yeah, join the Discord if you're not already part of the Discord. There's a link in the description, and send me a message there. We'll set something up. So Michael in Seattle says, could be worse. What could be worse? You? Well, that's a stupid question. What could be worse? Everything could be worse, right? Yeah, it doesn't matter how bad anything is. It could be worse. Spinozistic Buddhist, actually. So I completely understand your point about incorporating Taoism yet keeping previous practices, beliefs. Yeah. I gotta go rock a piss, so people have time to write shit for me to respond to when I get back, and If no one else has anything, I'll read a short story or something. But anyway, here's your fucking moment of now. Don't go check other text messages. Just sit and be present with whatever the fuck's inside you. Or write a comment for when I get back. Anyway, back shortly. All right, I'm back. All right. City says, last night I had sleep paralysis. I felt a very evil presence. Then my whole body was shaking, and I was trying to scream the Jesus prayer, and my mouth wasn't moving. Was I attacked by demons? Was it, oh my Jesus, forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell, lead all souls to heaven, especially those who have most need of thy mercy. Amen. Is that the prayer? Okay. I have had what I think of as night terrors. I've had night terrors in the past. That involves sleep paralysis, a form of lucid dreaming where I realize I'm dreaming, but there's none of that control shit Andrew has. It's like the super intense nightmare where I will become aware that I'm dreaming, but I'm trapped in the dream and it's still terrifying. And where I'm terrified that if I am killed in the dream, I will also actually die. And when I have sleep paralysis, I can't move anything or control anything at all except my breathing. I can control how I breathe if I concentrate on that. But I'll find I can even like feel my body lying in the bed. And it's like I can't move it at all. Those always involve the sensation of there being a very powerful evil presence. So I've experienced that. I am not sure if that's demons that were external or internal to me. So both with good shit and with bad shit. I've encountered stuff. Well, I mean, to a certain degree, we're all one. We're all the fucking same thing. So even when I'm talking about the external entities, even that, when you get up to the highest perspective, is not external. We're all the fucking source anyway. But to discuss it from down at this level, what the fuck's I gonna say? Okay, so I experience entities that seem to be angels and demons that are entities other than myself. Also, lowercase g gods and all kinds of shit I've interacted with. And I have basically angels and demons that seem to be a part of me. Like when I discuss my rage demon, like the adversary or the screaming suicides, I experience those as demons. And it seems to me, though, that those are parts of me. You could call them subpersonalities. But even though they are part of me, they connect to the archetypal demonic energy. And so I feel like my rage demon or inner adversary. I feel like I have an inner adversary and an inner Christ. that are like subpersonalities, but the inner adversary, when it comes out, does channel the actual adversary. So when is it myself? Is it the devil? It seems to me there's both an external devil and a devil that is a part of me. And so whether or not these are external demons or internal demons that we encounter during the night terrors, well, makes very little difference as to whether or not you can treat it as though it's real. Whether it's external to you or internal to you, it's real to you. So I don't think it matters whether it's internal or external. Also, whether it's internal or external, the same kind of shit will work. Like even like Richard Dawkins could see how if somebody had a deep enough belief in demonic possession and had the equivalent belief in an exorcism, that even though they think an exorcism is bullshit, from the psychological perspective, it could work. So I find with all my spirituality and magic and all of that shit, the larger frame I have found doesn't take a side as to whether or not this is psychological or mystical. And it also doesn't need to take a side with something as to whether or not it's internal or external to me for it to work. My magic rituals make sense to my inner agnostic. Like it used to be an inner atheist. It's gotten to an inner agnostic, but it's very Sam Harris. It looks at all the magic rituals from the perspective of the mystical and metaphysical aspects that the other subpersonalities believe in. To my inner agnostic, it's like those seem like bullshit. So it examines it all from the psychological perspective. So when I plan out a ritual, I plan it both mystically and magically. So I both take it entirely serious as real, and I also examine it from the perspective where it is not real, and this is all psychological. And I make my magical practice line up with both. So that my inner agnostic feels like, look, even if my fucking archangel and none of that is real, they're delusions. The magical practices I do seem to help me cope with the delusions. So even if it's all make-believe, like otherwise, who knows what the fuck I would turn into. I think I explained that well enough. And I actually thought of a story I was going to read if no one wrote anything. So I think I might want to still end on a story. You still here, Ani? So City said, do I get shaking? Like connected to the sleep paralysis? No, I've once had my bed shake, like underneath me, but that didn't involve sleep paralysis or nightmares. Dust says the shaking is your nerves coming back after feeling paralyzed. Good way to help it out is to meditate. City says, I usually just assume everything is spiritual and physical at the same time. Yeah. And even that distinction between spirit, like to say spiritual and physical almost seems to imply that physical is not spiritual. The physical is contained within the spiritual. The physical is spiritual. I think I caught up with everything in the chat. I don't think I missed anything. I'm really tired of thinking to what to say. Ani must have dropped out. Or I don't know, maybe sometimes there's a delay. Are you still here, honey? Okay, you're still here. All right, I want to take a break from thinking, so I got to read a short story. Something someone said earlier, Wombat Rob, I think. The combination of that and the fact that Ani was here made me think of a short story. And I think the book's behind me on my couch somewhere. All right, I have a bedtime story for everyone. Give me a minute to cough and have water, and then I'm going to read everyone our bedtime story for the night. Page 291. Okay, so I have a nice romantic story. So it's for everyone to listen to. But I picked the romantic story because you're here, Ani. So in that way, this is for you. It's called The Man Who Loved Flowers. On an early evening in May of 1963, a young man with his hand in his pocket walked briskly up New York's 3rd Avenue. The air was soft and beautiful. The sky was darkening by slow degrees from blue to the calm and lovely violet of dusk. There are people who love the city, and this was one of the nights that made them love it. Everyone standing in the doorways of the delicatessens and dry cleaning shops and restaurants seemed to be smiling. An old lady pushed 2 bags of groceries in an old baby pram, grinned at the young man and hailed him. "Hey, beautiful." The young man gave her a half smile and raised his hand in a wave. She passed on her way thinking, he's in love. He had that look about him. He was dressed in a light gray suit, the narrow tie pulled down a little, his top collar button undone. His hair was dark and cut short. His complexion was fair, his eyes a light blue. Not an extraordinary face, but on this soft spring evening, on this avenue, in May of 1963, he was beautiful. And the old woman found herself thinking with a moment's sweet nostalgia that in spring, anyone can be beautiful. If they're hurrying to meet the one of their dreams for dinner and maybe dancing after. Spring is the only season when nostalgia never seems to turn bitter. She went on her way glad that she had spoken to him and glad that he had returned the compliment by raising his hand in half salute. The young man crossed 63rd Street, walking with a bounce in his step and the same half smile on his lips. Partway up the block, an old man stood beside a chipped green handcart filled with flowers. The predominant color was yellow, a yellow fever of jonquils and late crocuses. The old man also had a carnation and a few hothouse tea roses, mostly yellow and white. He was eating a pretzel and listening to a bulky transistor radio that was sitting kitty corner on his handcart. The radio poured out bad news that no one listened to. A hammer murderer was still on the loose. JFK had declared that the situation in a little Asian country called Vietnam, the guy reading the news called it, would bear watching. An unidentified woman had been pulled from the East River. A grand jury had failed to indict a criminal overlord in the current city's administration's war on heroin. The Russians had exploded a nuclear device. None of it seemed real. None of it seemed to matter. The air was soft and sweet. Two men with beer bellies stood outside a bakery, pitching nickels and ribbing each other. Spring trembled on the edge of summer, and in the city, summer is the season of dreams. The young man passed the flower stand, and the sound of the bad news faded. He hesitated, looked over his shoulder, and thought it over. He reached into his coat pocket and touched the something in there again. For a moment, his face seemed puzzled, lonely, almost haunted. And then, as his hand left the pocket, it regained its former expression of eager expectation. He turned back to the flower stand, smiling. He would bring her some flowers. That would please her. He loved to see her eyes light up with surprise and joy when he brought her a surprise. Little things, because he was far from rich. A box of candy, a bracelet. Once, only a bag of Valencia oranges, because he knew they were Norma's favorite. "My young friend," the flower vendor said, as the man in the gray suit came back, running his eyes over the stock in the handcart. The vendor was maybe 68, wearing a torn gray knitted sweater and a soft cap in spite of the warmth of the evening. His face was a map of wrinkles. His eyes were deep in pouches. And a cigarette jittered between his fingers. But he also remembered how it was to be young in the spring. Young and so much in love that you practically zoomed everywhere. The vendor's face was normally sour, but now he smiled a little, just as the old woman pushing the groceries had, because this guy was such an obvious case. He brushed pretzel crumbs from the front of his baggy sweater and thought, if this kid were sick, they'd have him in intensive care right now. "How much are your flowers?" the young man asked. "I'll make you up a nice bouquet for $1. Those tea roses, they're hothouse, cost a little more, 70 cents a piece. I'll sell you a half dozen for $3.50. "Expensive," the young man said. "Nothing good comes cheap, my young friend. Didn't your mother ever teach you that?" The young man grinned. "She might have mentioned it at that." Sure she did. "I give you half a dozen. 2 red, 2 yellow, 2 white. Can't do no better than that, can I? Put in some baby's breath. They love that. And fill it out with some fern. Nice. Or you can have the bouquet for $1. "They?" the young man asked, still smiling. "My young friend," the flower vendor said, flicking his cigarette butt into the gutter and returning the smile. "No one buys flowers for themselves in May. It's like a national law. You understand what I mean." The young man thought of Norma, her happy, surprised eyes and her gentle smile, and he ducked his head a little. "I guess I do at that," he said. "Sure you do. What do you say?" "Well, what do you think?" "I'm going to tell you what I think. Hey, advice is still free, isn't it?" The young man smiled and said, "I guess it's the only thing left that is." "You're damn tootin' it is," the flower vendor said. "Okay, my young friend. If the flowers are for your mother, you get her the bouquet. A few jonquils, a few crocuses, some lily of the valley. She don't spoil it by saying, 'Oh, Junior, I love them. How much did they cost? Ooh, that's too much. Don't you know enough not to throw your money around?'" The young man threw back his head and laughed. The vendor said, "But if it's your girl, that's a different thing, my son, and you know it. You bring her the tea roses, and she doesn't turn into an accountant. You take my meaning? Hey, she's going to throw her arms around your neck. I'll take the tea roses," the young man said, and this time it was the flower vendor's turn to laugh. The two men pitching nickels glanced over, smiling. "Hey, kid," one of them called. "You want to buy a wedding ring cheap? I'll sell you mine. I don't want it no more." The young man grinned and blushed to the roots of his dark hair. The flower vendor picked out 6 tea roses, snipped the stems a little, spritzed them with water, and wrapped them in a large conical spill. "Tonight's weather looks just the way you'd want it," the radio said. "Fair and mild, temps in the mid to upper 60s. Perfect for a little rooftop stargazing if you're the romantic type. Enjoy, Greater New York. Enjoy. The flower vendor scotch taped the seam of the paper spill and advised the young man to tell his lady that a little sugar added to the water she put them in would preserve them longer. I'll tell her that, the young man said. He held out a $5 bill. Thank you. Just doing the job, my young friend, the vendor said, giving him $1.02. His smile grew a bit sad. Give her a kiss for me. On the radio, the Four Seasons began singing Sherv. The young man pocketed his change and went on up the street, eyes wide and alert and eager, looking not so much around him at the life ebbing and flowing up and down 3rd Avenue as inward and ahead, anticipating. But certain things did impinge. A mother pulling a baby in a wagon, the baby's face comically smeared with ice cream, a little girl jumping rope and sing-songing out her favorite rhyme, Betty and Henry up in a tree, Kissing. First comes love, then comes marriage. Here comes Henry with a baby carriage. 2 women stood outside a washateria, smoking and comparing pregnancies. A group of men were looking in a hardware store window at a gigantic color TV with a 4-figure price tag. A baseball game was on and all the players' faces looked green. The playing field was a vague strawberry color, and the New York Mets were leading the Phillies by a score of 6-1 in the top of the 9th. He walked on, carrying the flowers, unaware that the 2 women outside the washateria had stopped talking for a moment and had watched him wistfully as he walked past with his paper of tea roses. Their days of receiving flowers were long over. He was unaware of a young traffic cop who stopped the ears at the intersection of 3rd and 69th with a blast on his whistle to let him cross. The cop was engaged himself and recognized the dreamy expression on the young man's face from his own shaving mirror, where he had often seen it lately. He was unaware of the 2 teenage girls who passed him going the other way and then clutched themselves and giggled. At 73rd Street, he stopped and turned right. This street was a little darker, lined with brown stones and walk-down restaurants with Italian names. 3 blocks down, a stickball game was going on in the fading light. The young man did not go that far. Half a block down, he turned into a narrow lane. Now the stars were out, gleaming softly, and the lane was dark and shadowy, lined with vague shapes of garbage cans. The young man was alone now. No, not quite. A wavering yowl rose in the purple gloom, and the young man frowned. It was some tomcat's love song, and there was nothing pretty about that. He walked more slowly and glanced at his watch. It was 7:15, and Norma should be just... Then he saw her, coming toward him from the courtyard, wearing dark blue slacks and a sailor blouse that made his heart ache. It was always a surprise seeing her for the first time. It was always a sweet shock. She looked so young. Now his smile shone out, radiated out, and he walked faster. "Norma," he said. She looked up and smiled, but then as they drew closer, the smile faded. His own smile trembled a little, and he felt a moment's disquiet. Her face over the sailor blouse suddenly seemed blurred. It was getting dark now. Could he have been mistaken? Surely not. It was Norma. "I brought you flowers," he said in a happy relief, and handed the paper spill to her. She looked at them for a moment, smiled, and handed them back. "Thank you, but you're mistaken. My name is Norma," he whispered, and pulled the short-handled hammer out of his coat pocket where it had been all along. "They're for you, Norma. It was always for you. All for you." She backed away, her face a round white blur, her mouth an opening black O of terror, and she wasn't Norma. Norma was dead, She had been dead for 10 years, and it didn't matter because she was going to scream, and he swung the hammer to stop the scream, to kill the scream. And as he swung the hammer, the spill of flowers fell out of his hand. The spill spilled and broke open, spilling red, white, and yellow tea roses beside the dented trash cans where cats made alien love in the dark, screaming in love, screaming, screaming. He swung the hammer and she didn't scream, but she might scream because she wasn't Norma. None of them were Norma. And he swung the hammer, swung the hammer, swung the hammer. She wasn't Norma, and so he swung the hammer as he had done 5 other times. Some unknown time later, he slipped the hammer back into his inner coat pocket and backed away from the dark shadow on the cobblestones, away from the litter of tea roses by the garbage cans. He turned and left the narrow lane. It was full dark now. The stickball players had gone in. If there were blood stains on his suit, they wouldn't show. Not in the dark. Not in the soft, late spring dark. And her name had not been Norma, but he knew what his name was. It was Love. His name was Love. And he walked these dark streets because Norma was waiting for him, and he would find her someday soon. He began to smile. A bounce came into his step as he walked on down 73rd Street. A middle-aged married couple sitting on the steps of their building watched him go by, head cocked, eyes far away, a half smile on his lips. When he had passed by, the woman said, "How come you never look that way anymore?" "Huh?" "Nothing," she said. But she watched the young man in the gray suit disappear into the gloom of the encroaching night and thought that if there was anything more beautiful than springtime, it was young love. All right, so there was the man who loved flowers. Did you like the ending, honey? All right, so Dust talking to City said, "Well, true, it's good to slow down the scope of your thoughts. Try your best not to worry, because worry itself, when overdone, can cause more problems than whatever problem you're facing." Well said. And follows up with building frameworks for thought helps map out the chaos. And Nerdy Bird agrees. Good stuff tonight, Dust. All right, City says, "I felt like maybe it happened because I was sinful, but also maybe it was just random. When I first came back to Christianity, I got attacked every night, hallucinations and everything." Dust says, "Not because you're sinful, just devils pitching a bitch they can't get what they want. Job suffered night terrors. The psalmist suffered night terrors. You're not alone there at all." And City once knew a Norma that isn't Norma anymore. That's a creepy sentence after what I just wrote. I hope a hammer isn't the reason that Norma isn't Norma anymore. But, City, back to what you said about feeling like it might happen because you were sinful. Before I agree with Dust about that side of it, take that seriously. Examine your conscience. Like the same way that Peter admires, who the fuck was it, Dostoevsky or whoever, that when they ended up in a concentration camp, they didn't think about the outward fault. They looked at what mistakes had they made that led them to be there. Even though it's very easy to say it's not their fault they're there. So Dust's point is valid, and that's the thing to follow up with. But even if it's not your fault because you sinned in the more extreme way, it is useful to examine what sins do I commit, because our sins do lead us towards suffering. So they either open us up to demons or they damage us psychologically. And like, even just from a Richard Dawkins model, a sin, something that you shouldn't do, has negative consequences down the road. So one of the most important things I think about magic in general is cleaning up your own conscience. You've got to, and we spend most of our time online arguing with each other over what's right and wrong, trying to convince people of what's right or wrong. Far more important than you figuring out the deep questions you don't have answers to is stop doing the shit you know full well is wrong. The shit that bothers your conscience naturally. The kinds of things that keep you awake at night. Honesty and being a good person to the best of your understanding. I'm not talking about being an expert on ethics. Being a good person by your own understanding, being an honest person, those are protections against both metaphysical and practical negative results that we build up in the future. So it's good to ask yourself how you've sinned and to correct that. But once you've finished doing that, like, and you know what you need to work on, and you're actively like trying to be a good person, do not assume like every other negative thing. For me, I don't want to explain all the why, but for me, to simplify it, the best thing to do is to demonstrate your faith in God by assuming that everything is happening for your benefit. So whether these demons are inside or outside, assume that this is happening to you because it is in your best interest for your spiritual progression. Move forward aiming for love, goodness, be honest, follow your own conscience, and you will be led to the things that will rid you of this. Also, if you want a private session, because if we talk one-on-one, I could possibly give you much better advice. If you want a private session, write to me in our Discord, and we could talk shit through, because fucking night terrors are no fun, man. I've had that shit. Ani said about the story, that was beautiful. I love flowers, but I love you more. I love you too. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So I thought about it partially because someone asked about a hammer having life earlier, and I started talking about like killing people with hammers would alter the life of a hammer. So it was the mix of that with the fact that I'm all stupid and fucking dopey lovesick, like the killer in that story, that made me think to read that tonight. Oh, you did follow up with because she changed her name, City. Okay, I'm glad it wasn't because someone used a hammer to stop her from being Norma. And I'm glad you enjoyed the story, Rob. Actually, the last time I read a long story, someone commented after that they enjoyed the reading, but it put them right to sleep. And that did make me think I might, at some point, just read a full fucking story. Because more than one person has said they like listening to me read a story. And that's something that if someone's having trouble, like I was thinking of just doing a long one for if any of you have trouble sleeping and you like my reading. I will try to get around to that at some time. Posting just a bedtime story on its own without all the nonsense before and after. Anyone have any final thoughts they want to share with everyone, or any final questions? Because I've done over an hour now, and I'm feeling like wrapping this up. Hey, City says I'm not really too bothered by the night terrors, to be honest. Good. That demonstrates some psychological strength. Good for you. For years, I had zombie dreams. it was when I was in total isolation. Like I had no phone, no internet, no car. The only people I saw were my parents, and primarily like dropping shit off. I had zombie dreams. Just that was all I dreamt about. It's like every fucking night that I remembered dreams, it was zombie dreams. I had them for like a year and a half, I think. I started out terrifying. Then they gradually became like stressful. I was no longer afraid, but the dreams always involved me protecting people I couldn't see. Like I'm always alone fighting zombies or getting supplies or trying to find somebody or defending some house or barn or some such thing. So it was always that there were a group of people depending on me, but I never actually saw them. There are even dreams where it's like there would be someone right behind me and I know they're right behind me. There's one dream where I was searching through some suburb because there was a family member, there was a group somewhere that I was taking care of. One of them knew their family member was alive, and I went into some suburb alone to get their family member. I can remember like finding them, but when I found them, they just instantly ran like directly behind me, and they were terrified of the zombies. And it was like the zombies weren't even, it didn't seem like they were even trying to kill me. They were trying to get past me at the whoever it was behind me. I didn't even know if it was a guy or a girl. All I knew is they had dark hair and a red sweater. So I just saw them out of the corner of my eye. But it's like I would be like trying to fucking destroy zombie brains where they're not even trying to actually bite me. They're trying to reach past me at that person. And so for a while, the dreams were stressful. I was no longer afraid. Because it was like I knew I had learned in the dream world how to handle the zombies, and they weren't dangerous to me anymore. They were dangerous to other people. So they were stressful for a while. It was probably like 6 months terrifying, 6 months stressful. And then the last 6 months, I started finding them enjoyable. It's like I had become competent at operating in that world. It was easy for me to protect people or to go get supplies. And it was enjoyable. It was weird. And at the point where they got enjoyable, I occasionally encountered other people, but they were only they weren't people I knew in real life. I encountered Bruce Campbell once, like the actor, not a character. And once I met up with the Trailer Park Boys, the characters, not the actors, and interacted with them. In both cases, the people I encountered, I hung out with them for a while and then like took them to the group. I was like, there, you can go there, you'll be safe. All right, that's enough about that nonsense. Everyone's got some form of weakness, City. Rob says, appreciate you. Don't usually join these because I'm asleep, but it hit the spot tonight. Much love. I love you, brother. I hope you have a great night. Sleep well. I love everyone here, so that goes out to everyone. City says, I had a dream when I was a kid where I was randomly selected from the entire world population to get killed on a roller coaster of death. Kept getting it over and over. Fucking weird. I once had a really strange dream. It's when I was staying with my parents after I first fucking went nuts. So when I first got out of the mental hospital, I retreated in disgrace from life to my parents' place. Like my first time locked up after my first psychosis. I remember I had this really realistic nightmare where, for some reason, the government had sentenced me to death. And it's like I was at my parents' place knowing they were going to execute me that evening. And it was like I was having my final afternoon. And it was like as the time for me to be killed was approaching. It was like I just wanted to have a couple cigarettes, then a joint. And so I'm waiting for them to show up and kill me. And then when the government show up to execute me, they pull in this government like pickup truck, and the back of it is full of kids with weapons. The majority of them, they all had like real guns, either handguns or assault rifles. But one kid had the ray gun from Call of Duty, like when you play the Call of Duty zombie levels, and there's that weird little ray gun. It's like all 50s sci-fi style. One kid had that. But when I saw out the window, it's like I could see that vehicle turning into the head of the driveway. And so I like light one last smoke, have one last fucking smoke before I go outside and die. I watch the truck pull in and I see that it's all these kids, like between 6 and 10 years old, getting out, and they've all got guns. And I realize that they're the firing squad. And the kids are all excited to kill someone. It was like I was not upset about being executed, but I was just enraged that they were having children kill me. That they had like done that to children, turned them into executioners. And I got more and more upset about that until the anger woke me up. Weird fucking dream, eh? And Dust says, I want Bruce Campbell in my dream. Yeah, that dream was fucking awesome. I think I've described it before. But in that dream, it was like the middle of the night. There was a nice big full moon up, and I was out in the country, and everyone I was protecting was inside this old barn, and they were all asleep, like sleeping in the hay in this old barn. And I was sitting outside just smoking and watching the zombies. And for some reason in that dream, there were also white tigers. So it's like zombies just wandering through the fields and fucking white tigers all over the place. There's this heavy fog and this full moon, this dirt road going by. And it's like there was a field across the dirt road and like opened out into this valley where you could see the zombies and tigers going forever. But the road disappeared. It was like all forest around the back of the barn. Where the road went, it was all. And Bruce Campbell, like the actor, came running up, and I was just sitting outside the barn smoking. He comes running up saying the people he's with had died. He needs somewhere to hide. And I was like, no problem. There's people inside. We have food, water, and shit. He's like, oh, thank God. And he asked me for a smoke, so I gave him a cigarette, and he sat down for a minute. And I remember talking to him about it. I'm like, you're Bruce Campbell, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh, I fucking love your movies, Evil Dead. And then I remember talking to him how in the dream I was thinking, it's so funny that it's actually a zombie apocalypse right now. The majority of the world is dead, and who the fuck do I run into? I run into Bruce Campbell, the hero from and not that they're technically zombie movies, but Evil Dead, it's demons possessing dead bodies. It's close enough to zombies. We discussed like the ironic element of that. Had a couple cigarettes, and then he was like, he went into the barn and went to sleep with everyone else. And I just sat out there. Hey, Pat. How you doing tonight? We have not talked in a while. But we're going to get Lunatic patrols going again soon. Dust is actually going to make me do that. So we will announce that soon. But Pat, I have not talked to you in forever. We should either talk sometime or you should come to a Lunatic patrol sometime. Because I'm going to get those going. Dust will make sure of that. So Ani says to City, I feel like the dream was a message to let loose and to trust your journey. And City says, I once had bad food poisoning and had a dream where I was in pure oppressive chaos and felt compelled to set it in order, though futile. Closest thing to hell I've ever experienced. Yeah, that does not sound pleasant. Every so often, I would have an epiphany and realize the solution, which was to throw up in the toilet, then fall asleep to the same dream again. Yeah, that does not sound like a good night's sleep. So I hope you have a much better night's sleep tonight. Yeah, that definitely sounds like a bad night. And Dust says, worst reoccurring dream I had was stepping across a threshold. Then I heard tons of screaming and I'd wake up. That sounds creepy. I guess over time they wore off. Yeah, I have not had any reoccurring dreams in a long time. I think the last time I had like intense fucking night terror, a year and a half ago, roughly. I don't think I've had any. Actually, I don't think I've had any. I've had what I think of as stress mares. I've had dreams that are extremely stressful. Like to the point of I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, I already said a while ago I wanted to wrap this up. I've done enough blabbing for one night. So if anyone watched this far and you're not a part of our Discord, it's down in the description. We are going to get lunatic patrols going at some point, probably fairly soon. And so if you want the opportunity to participate in that, or if you want to be able to write to me directly about private sessions or getting tarot readings from Ani, that's the place to contact me. So links in the description. Now, I hope everyone gets a good night's sleep. God bless. Lunatic love to all.